Hi guys and welcome to Horologique, welcome to 2022. I hope you had a wonderful celebration and that your hangover is gone by now. Let's get straight back into watches and let's have a look at 2021. Let's look at the tops and the flops that we had, last year. And these are going to be the tops and the flops from the reviews I have made on the channel. Of course, the broad watch spectrum is much wider. A word of caution again, what I mean by flops here are not necessarily bad watches, but they're watches that have made it into the flop list by one or another reason that I will explain in detail. And to get a bit of variation, I'm going to talk about one top followed by one flop, and I'm just going to keep it at 5 each. Otherwise this would be a really long video. And of course all the links for these watches, even for the flops, are going to be in the description below. But let's get right into it. First top of the year would be for me the biggest surprise of the year, which was the Escapement Time Flieger. And that little watch was really amazing because it offered so much for so little. Indeed, that watch was a 42mm Flieger with an NH35, 200 meters of water resistance, a sapphire crystal and thermally blued hands, and all that for about $100. So that was like the deal of the century. Things have changed a bit ever since then, and the watch has gotten a bit more expensive. It costs around $120 now, which is still not a lot given the specs that you're getting. And in return, they have put an NH38 in there, so you do not have a ghost date position. So I believe it is a good trade-off. Let's talk about the first flop, and that came at the beginning of the year with the Banier Milgauss Homage. That watch actually looked good. It has a Chinese movement and the price was very low, around the $40 mark, something like that. There was a big downturn, and that was the fact that it was not actually stainless steel, contrary to what was advertised on the website, and more importantly on the watch itself. It said full stainless steel case when it was actually not. It was a metal alloy of some kind, and that was discovered by Honest Watch Reviews. And I actually went ahead and scratched and did a bit of scratching of the watch, and I did not find out anything conclusive, but ever since it has been confirmed that it was actually not stainless steel. So shame on you, Banier, for trying to pull that on us. Another amazing discovery on the channel. And this is by no means a new watch, but it was a new watch for me. It was a Seagull 1963. And as you know, this little 37mm watch is pretty much the only way that you can get a mechanical chronograph which uses a column wheel mechanism, and that costs around $150–160 mark, which is amazing, unheard of. And moreover, you can see this movement through the exhibition caseback. This watch is an icon as well. It has become an icon of the entry level, and more big YouTube channels are recognizing that status. And the fact that you can get it for such a low price is pretty outstanding. I would suggest that everybody get one of these amazing watches. Once again, for a top, a flop. So let's go to the Sundarton GMT. Yes, I know it is pretty surprising to see Somaton in here, but I believe that the GMT was indeed not a bad watch per se, but it was a watch that was priced too high. It was, I believe it is around the $400 mark, and for what you're getting, it is just not justified. I would suggest to put $250 or $300 more and go for the Steinhardt version that is much better built and which has an ETA GMT movement at the back of it. But the Sundarton had a clone of the 2836 movement. The date complication that was adapted to be a GMT It was really expensive because of the fact that the ceramic bezel insert was half blue and half red, and that is apparently very difficult to make. But in any case, you ended up with a watch that was not bad, but not worth the $400 they were asking for. Top number 3, how to forget the Orient Kamasu. Once again, I talk about this watch all the time, but there's one other reason to talk about it, the V2 of this watch. And the V2 of this watch resembles Ray 2, so with the circular indices, when the V1 had the rectangular indices. So whichever version you like, both are still available. And these are fully in-house, fully Japanese-made watches with very competent movements, day-date complications, and they're really handsome divers, which are very wearable at 41mm and 200-meter water resistant. So for me, as I have been saying for many years, the Orient Kamasu is the best Japanese watch you can get below the $300 mark. Flop number 3, the Pagani Design Black Bay Homage. This watch was just a badly made watch. The finishing was coarse, the bicolor lume was just not too good, the clasp was pretty good, the elements were all solid, but for that very dumb diver's extension. What were they doing putting a diver extension on a 100-meter watch? And the price it came out for, it came out at around $140, which was huge, especially for what Pagani Design had been offering up to then. The sub Homage 1661 had been out for a few months before that, and it cost about $100, even less than that. And it was a wonderful, wonderful watch. Now it has changed, and it has the Miura 8215, although it would be on the top list. However, its brethren, the Black Bay Homage, is on the flop list because it is much too expensive for what was on offer. At number 4 of the tops, the Sundarton 62 MAS, and I doubted about putting this one here because of some negative aspects that it has. Well, the positive far outweighs the negative. This watch is beautiful. The dial is one of the most mesmerizing things that I have seen. That charcoal dial, of course, that is in no way thanks to Sundarton, as the design is fully Seiko, but they have made it very well, and the indices, the hands, everything is really, really well made to a very high standard, and it is better than the equivalent reissue you can find from Seiko on the finish part, of course, and you can have it for 4 times less. So yeah, I believe that unless you really want that Seiko brand, it's actually a no-brainer. Why did I doubt about putting this watch here? Well, because of the bracelet. The bracelet is a big thing. It is male linked, and the male links make it that it wears pretty big because the end link to end link is a huge 53mm, and the bracelet does not taper enough. It is pretty big according to me. You can put it on a rubber strap and you can nullify that. That's what I would suggest actually, and that's how the original Seiko 62 mask came. The 4th flop would be the Tsar Bomba. I would not say this watch was a flop per se. It actually sold and is still selling very well because of that Richard Mille air about it. It really wants to emulate everything about Richard Mille, even though it is not a direct homage to any actual model from Richard Mille. The really negative point that I see about this watch would be the thickness. The thickness was a gargantuan 17.4mm. That is just too much, and it looked pretty ridiculous on my wrist at least. The very last from the top would be the Sundarton Explorer 39mm, and I believe that this could be the best that Sundarton released in 2021. It was a very good watch, really well made. It wanted to harken back to the 1016 Explorers on a larger side, so it was a kind of hybrid, an older face with a modern size, but it somehow pulled it off with the very high box dome sapphire crystal, the old radium lume which glue wonderfully well. Of course, I have not reviewed all their models, especially on the last quarter, but up to then it was the best. The last flop, and it pains me a bit to put this watch on the flops, because it is not a bad watch again, but it is a watch that has earned its place on this bad list because of a very dumb implementation that they made. And it is the Caddison Royal Oak Chronograph. The watch has all the good and the bad of the non-chronograph version, so it has a very good construction. The finishing is actually very good for the price. The movement is a solid, trustable and reliable Seiko VK63 Mega Quartz. The crystal is sapphire, so everything is good, up to the point when you try to use the chronograph, when you realize that what you think are screw-in pushers are actually just normal pushers, and that the nerding on those chronograph pushers is just for show. That is a pretty dumb move. They just could have made normal pushers. Nobody would have blamed them, it doesn't matter really. But then they go and try to dupe us with something like that. And it was maybe to get in direct competition with the Pagani Design Royal Oak Chronograph Homage, which did have screw-in pushers. That's been it from me. Let me know what you think. If I have missed something, if you do not agree with both of the lists, and let me know what you would have put instead. Thank you so much for having watched the video. I'll be back with more very soon. Goodbye.